Whatever, computer. Today we're going to talk about the old Star Wars movie that's coming out someday in 2025, probably. And we're talking about
Battle for Endor
Boba
2?
Fett. Which one?
Battle for Endor 2.
Battle for Endor 2, The Quest for Peace.
The Quest
Yeah,
for
but
Brimley.
yeah,
The Quest for Brimley.
but yeah, there was a video. There's this video, right? And I actually kind of feel bad about it because I tried to like look before the show. I was trying to look to find where the video came from, and it's like from TikTok, I think. And but the video's being shared around. I've been tagged in it a few times, and I don't know who originally did the interview, so I don't know how to give any kind of like credit for it. So I kind of feel like a jerk, but it's an interesting quote, and it's really Charmin Obey-Chinoy talking about the next Star Wars movie. So I'm going to play a clip from that of her discussing it, basically.
My name is Sharmeen Obed-Chinoy, and I am directing the next Star Wars film. I'm excited about bringing Daisy Ridley back into the Star Wars galaxy and in telling her story. I'm excited to be immersed in the Jedi Academy, and I think there is so much excitement around the new Jedi Order.
There's a couple of like little small things to glean from that potentially, if you want to look into it too deeply, which is what we're going to do, is that she does pretty much imply that if this is like Rey's story, that this new Star Wars film is truly a Rey film. Celebration also pushed that idea that it was really a Rey film as well. It was like it seemed like it was going to be, like originally when I heard about some of the context of the film, we knew that the characters would be in it, but it was going to be like sort of a new cast situation. And I'm like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right about this, but I'm not saying this is like a scoop, okay? I think that Rey wasn't the main character in this film. And I think that that's what Lindelof was writing. And then I think by the end of everything, they decided that Rey's going to be the protagonist of this film. So it would not surprise me if this film comes out, Rey's the protagonist. We got some Jedi in here who are going to become, who are going to have some standout moments, young Jedi, Padawan, newcomers to the Order, whatever. And then they will end up spinning off into new films. And so I kind of can see maybe Lindelof spent a lot of time laying out how to do these new characters and make them interact with Rey in a interesting way. They decided that wasn't the most pop way to go. I think that's where we're at with this, but I don't know for certain. And I also earlier in the week, or late last week, I should say, I tried to find out some more stuff about like what was up, like with that rumor from the hot mic about John Boyega being involved. And one thing that I just heard this was that they're like, we don't know, and he might be, but there's not even a script yet. And so it seems like he would want to read the script before he signs on to do more Star Wars movies, or I don't think John Boyega is just going to blindly agree to do Star Wars. And right. Especially with how it's gone in the past. So I think that makes sense. Like that kind of like tracks. So I'm not saying that he's in it or not in it, just talking about what I'm getting over here, what my conversations have been today and early in the week. So yeah.
And I'm a fan of John Roca, but you're saying he's full of shit. No, I'm not. I'm not, John. Don't get mad. Don't get mad.
I'm saying okay. Block him. You should definitely
no.
Roca should block Sketchcraft today.
He's gonna join on that bandwagon. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
definitely,
Paul.
Definitely block him. Yeah, no, but I mean, like, that just doesn't mean, doesn't mean, I don't know. I couldn't say, I don't know right now. Right now, I feel like on this next Star Wars film, you could come out with the truth 100%, be 100% accurate. And by the time this movie is out, it will be wrong because it's still like in development. It's still being worked on and it's still being ironed out. And, it doesn't even sound like the second draft has been turned in at this point. And so who knows what's really going on is my point.
This has sort of been my fear a little bit, right? No, I'm not for good or bad films, not the fear. It's when they were like, we've been spending this time working out our story. I think they've been working out an era and like things, big level things that will happen. I don't think they worked out. I don't think they worked out any story. Like that's actual story in which, there's an inciting incident and there's fun and games, all the Saved by the Cat tropes, right? Like,
yeah,
there's the roads less traveled, that kind of shit. The montage, like, I don't think any of that stuff.
Well, for Lindelof to move forward, they would have to, like, at least the climate would have had to have been ironed out, right? For him to even get there.
Well, he turned in a script, so there's a story there.
So yeah,
that doesn't mean like that doesn't mean. I mean, again, if you have a new actress and you go in a different direction, then you don't have a story. Like you have a backdrop,
and that's why I'm saying though, like I doubt that new direction is super new. It'll be like what 3 years we'll know probably more or less like books start dropping. Oh, and on this date we change this kind of stuff. But hopefully they might hide it all too, like how they've done before. But it's like before Lindelof would have gone and started writing, like truly writing. And if they're doing writer's room stuff and everything like that, like they're clearly like whiteboarding a lot and deciding like what the climate's going to be. And if the Jedi are in disarray, which is what Kathleen Kennedy has said, why? And then, you do have to come up with a threat and a protagonist of, an antagonist of some kind. And then Jeff Snyder said that there were actors who were on board that came attached with Lindelof and that they're now gone. So because the parameters of the role changed. So that would kind of make sense if if the parameters of the role would change, if, you were the, that actor was the protagonist and now all of a sudden Rey is, and you have these emerging characters that are going to show up, that would definitely change the parameters of that role. So it really does, it could go a lot of different ways. I mean, if they really hated everything that they had done for that whole year, it would be weird to go and say, we've been working on this for like 2 years already, but then to go, but now we're starting from scratch. I don't think they would do that. I don't think it would go that way. It would be weird to do that, but I guess Lucasfilm would do that because I've seen Kathleen Kennedy say like, we have all of the scripts to Kenobi when they didn't. They had scripts from other shit. You know what I mean? Like another fucking tape, stuff like that, but it wasn't, they didn't actually. So she will posture. That's for damn sure. So, but it's going to be an interesting like development. Is my take right now.
It feels very similar to The Force Awakens, man. As of right now, that could change by tomorrow.
Yeah.
But right now, it feels like they have a date. They're racing for a date. They don't have a full script. They have a lot of development and concept art, and they're piecing together the imagery, and they know what they don't want. They're waiting for the director's going to have a lot of input. We brought in someone who's already accomplished, and to help guide that in the next 6 months, and they'll probably be on. It just feels a lot like they're trying to rekindle the old magic they felt they had the first time. And if we do end up with another Member Berries film, dude, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I don't want that either. Like, I'm not even dying for like Luke Skywalker to show up as a ghost to Rey in this thing, because if it's the age old problem. Like, if you have Luke Skywalker in some certain ways, you don't have any problems, right? I mean, it's like he can't be there. He has to be elusive. And there does have to be like, that's why in the books, like classically, the Force Ghost isn't just hanging out with the protagonist the whole time, because then it's like they don't have to do anything, they don't have to make any life choices on their own, and it's just like this like shadow of something from the past, like, you know, kind of hovering over, guiding everything, and takes away the agency of the new hero. And that's a big problem. That's why like Obi-Wan Kenobi like tells Luke in Heir to the Empire, which people gush about all the time, the fucking best thing is the Heir to the Empire is the best fucking thing in the world. Well, okay, then you need to see eye to eye on that one too. Obi-Wan tells Luke, I can't help you, man. I gotta go on. Peace out. Good luck. You did it. You did it, homie. It's all on you now. And there's you know, reasons for that. And like I have like a lot of, I had some like a lot of tweets this week coming at me saying things like, why doesn't Rey just have a good Jedi Order? Why aren't the lessons of the past learned and stuff like that? And it's like, if Star Wars was real and this was like a real governing agency, you would make total sense with that kind of thought. But it's
school
story.
Shootings occur in this country every week, right?
Yeah, but
you know what I mean? For
but
years
I mean,
on end.
But it's just like it's story. Story is about things that don't work. If things work, there's no story. And so it's like, if Rey just starts the New Jedi Order after episode 9, everybody's just like, cool, and it just effortlessly, and it just happens and super easy. There's just nothing to fucking tell. There's just no reason to make that story. So you have to make it hard, and it's Star Wars, so you can't have peace. When you have peace, you're not doing what the purpose of the whole thing is, which is to get to the wars.
And
So,
not for nothing, Jason, Luke's Jedi Academy didn't all go all that well according to plan either. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like the Jedi Academy books were like just hanging out, you know, like
yeah. I mean, like I like that moment in Mando when you see like all those like little robots start making it, you know, and stuff. But like even in what we're getting in Mando for Luke's Jedi Academy, his like first pupil leaves, just quits, goes back to be a Mando. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm going to be a Mandalorian, bye, and he takes off. Yeah. So I mean, it's like, you know, it's not a super easy, smooth thing to like do. And but that's like another thing, is that Mandalorian used Jedi Academy. They used that term instead of Jedi Order or Jedi Temple. And Charmin Obaid-Chinoy is also using that same terminology, so that's going to be a thing. I don't like it, to be honest with you. I think Jedi Academy does not really make sense to a place that deals with mysticism and spirituality and stuff like beyond that. That sounds like it's a place where you send fucking Harry Potter to learn how to be a fucking wizard cop, you know? But that's just me.
Well, I told you my observational, like, the observation I came away from all of the content shown at Celebration, between the trailers that were released and not released, and Vision Season 2, is I'm like, there's a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids, and I'm not saying that like, oh, Rob doesn't want kids. Stranger Things was my favorite thing that came out like last year.
Right.
You know, that and Avatar. And so it's like, my thing is, I feel like this looks like a company directive to me. I you know, like, when you're like, got to make sure we have some kids in it so we can show all ages, and we got to get more kids watching this stuff. And all of our, I could see the Star Trek thing where they're like, our fan base is aging out, you know, like we need younger, if we, and the ones we got 6 years ago, they're working 6 jobs in an Uber, you know, like they ain't got time for Star Wars. We need, sad to say, man, I wish it weren't true. So yeah. I don't know, man. Like, that's just, I'm like, maybe they all creatively came to the same conclusion. That is possible, but
about the Jedi Academy, like terminology,
just having like a bunch of kids and everything. You know what I mean? Like,
an
academy.
There's been no indication that she even has a pupil yet. You know what I mean? We don't even know. Right. So yeah, I'm with you though. I mean, if they do put a bunch of children in it, it's going to be a harder sell. It's going to come off weird.
The upside to having an academy is the problem that we were talking about with Azatru last week, where I'm like, he was bringing up Hogwarts selling, and I'm like, yeah, you need like a location to go back to. And right now, when people had asked him like, what's the Star Wars location you think Star Wars fans want to see? He's like, it's Coruscant. I'm okay. That's a fucking planet. Like you
Mhm.
build a whole planet. It's not. I mean, it's just not technically
Yeah, but
possible.
you're
But if
getting
you
hung up
could really
on semantics. When he says that, he means they want to see like they like he said
right, the
like
Jedi Temple would be a place
the
on
Jedi
Coruscant.
Temple, the fucking
Correct,
downtown
correct. But
district, like
all that's
fucking
gone right
13.
now. So
Yeah,
so I can imagine them saying, all right, let's root a place where everyone would want to go to and kind of build like a home base. You
yeah.
understand what I mean? Like
But I mean, I thought about what when you said that last week. We'll move on from it real quickly. We'll go back to it. But it's like being a Padawan is what people would want to be. If you want to do the Harry Potter game in Star Wars, you have a Jedi Master and you're a Padawan, and then you go places and you go on missions, and he or she takes you places and does things. Like that would be the
which is
equivalent of it. That's what
which is
Star Wars
why I
fans
would
would want.
totally get a
Yeah,
a, a a PS5, Xbox Series X exclusive title where you get to create your own character, and
hmm
the Cal Kestis character is the Obi-Wan. So whatever
yeah,
character you create, that Cal Kestis pre-made actor that we're building the whole thing around, call it Jedi
yeah,
Master to be the third game.
yeah,
I'm on board. That means I got a Jedi Master. We're gonna go on adventures. 100%,
hmm
Jason. That's a brilliant
yeah.
idea. But what they
It's
keep
easy.
giving us is Luke Skywalker Jr. You know what I mean? And I'm like, we gotta
Mhm.
get. I want to make my own character. I want to go to Star Wars. Like, yeah. Good idea,
Our
Jason.
Aria gave us Donkey Kong Cash, DKK, that cash is with a K. DK,
DK.
K, Donkey Kong Cash 50. Thank you, Aria. Appreciate it. Hope Stephen Knight can write some badass villains, or that he knows about the Sith from episode 9 that got crushed. So, yeah, I feel number one, he's has a pretty good legacy, I'd say, of writing organized crime. And so what is the villain of this story going to be? Because I mean, if you have 15 years of just unregulated force people coming up, people who had it and were hiding it, all you know what I mean, people who were kicked out of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order, people who Kylo Ren never found and killed, and concepts like that. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of shit that can be out there. There's actually probably more that can be out there at this time than in like the the post Return of the Jedi era, or even the Dark Times, because of it's just nobody, the stuff's not filled in, right? So like in terms of
Right.
like villains, it could have, but also it could be space cops, and it could be organized crime, and it might be like taking down, like, you know what I mean, like Jedi who are up against militias and stuff like that. It could be stuff like that. It's really is up for debate, but I would say you wouldn't want that specifically because you want lightsaber fights. You're definitely going to want those lightsaber fights for the trailers and stuff. So, excuse me, getting a cough. But you're gonna want that. So I would be surprised if they went specifically with crime or organized crime as the like really big bad guy
The
or
Hutts are
antagonist.
gangsters.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. I'm not in love with Stephen Knight stuff. Like, people like Peaky Blinders quite a bit. I thought it was all right, but I didn't like it as much as like other shows I was watching around that time, like Boardwalk Empire and stuff. It wasn't my
I was gonna say
favorite.
I haven't seen Peaky Blinders, but I love
Mhm.
Boardwalk Empire. Like, so
Yeah,
it's not at that level.
yeah, it's a little more like it's just like, I don't know. It's a little more Gangs of New York in a way. Uh, but
Comic booky.
yeah, it just not exact. I wouldn't say it's comic book. I don't know. I didn't really connect with it though. And then I watched his
Gangs of New York
other
is
show.
very comic booky to me. So.
Yeah. I'm more like era stuff. But anyways, yeah, I watched like his other show that was a bit comic booky about the guys in World War II who were just like about making mischief, you know? And it was fun, but once again, he wouldn't be my number one choice to go and write the next Star Wars thing, you know. But it's like, it doesn't mean it's going to be good or bad. We just never know what we're going to get, like I always say. So it doesn't matter if, you know, your favorite writer, you know, like fucking I love Anne Rice. She's dead, but if she was alive and she came on and wrote a Star Wars thing, I'd be all about it. But at the end of the day, it probably wouldn't be good. It probably wouldn't work.
Right, and who was lining up to see an Ivan Kershner film, right?
Irvin, Ivan.
Ivan.
They're gonna know we're fucking Russians if you keep saying that. We're fucking Russian ops, dude. They're gonna
Is
know.
he gonna fucking crawl back from the dead and kill me?
I am Ivan.
Yeah, Irvin Kershner, whatever. Kush came back from the fucking. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You just don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And some crazy people on the show think Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars film, and it's directed by. It isn't even directed by a director. Like it's a guy who's never directed any fucking thing his entire life. Like,
no, he directed movies. They just weren't movies that
really
wanted to watch.
Really.
Yeah. Richard Marquand, that wasn't his first movie.
Okay.
Hold on. Looking. It's not a good film though. The other one, not really. I remember it's
Eye of the Needle. You got me on that one.
Yeah. See. I mean, it was
at
the time
I take it back.
Of a young filmmaker, but once again though, no one saw Eye of the Needle or the Legacy and said, "Oh, give him Return of the Jedi." It was like George Lucas who has this idea with these sensibilities and he's like, I think you're the man or the person to convey those sensibilities. That's why they get the gig.
You haven't seen Birth of the Beatles? You, the Beatles fan?
There was a lot of bad Beatles stuff. Even that fucking I Want to Hold Your Hand by Robert Zemeckis is trash. Did you ever see that one?
No.
I wouldn't have thought that.
Hard Day's Night.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought, it would have. Hard Day's Night's a great movie, but it's with the Beatles. Yeah, so I'm talking about like movies without the Beatles.
That guy was Richard Lester, and he went on to do such shit films as Superman 3 and parts of Superman 2 I hate. So go figure that out.
True. But thank you for the super chat, Aria. And Bram, thanks for becoming a channel member. How's it going? I like your guitar.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Meg says, all the people claiming the Zahn trilogy is how Luke should be have never read it. Same people who think Luke in The Last Jedi was out of character. Yeah, like
by a woman every 3 seconds in that series.
Oh man, you got like
every 3 seconds with a woman with a real aggressive, male fantasy woman who had no training. Like she just had like some pep talks from Palpatine.
Would you call her a Mara Sue?
Yes, she's a Mara Sue. Why did we never think of that till now?
You know what? It's time. It was time. But yeah, no, I mean, like
this is really good stuff.
Writing that down. Yeah.
Well, what other shitty Beatles movies did Richard make? I'm curious.
No, just that one. Huh. Just that one, George.
Oh,
just that one.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Later. Peace.
Well, later, dude. Bye, George. But I kind of I kind of just don't really see like why they would bring Chinoy in to direct this one if it wasn't because it was about somebody resisting a dominant society or a dominant force saying you can't do this or you shouldn't do this. And like we kind of saw The Last Jedi introduce Luke Skywalker saying like we shouldn't exist. We're ultimately bad for the galaxy. And so I'm kind of wondering if they're going to play with that idea more and if the galaxy is going to kind of finally have said, you know what, like these people like it always results in like blowing up planets and shit. Like maybe we just shouldn't have it. And so maybe maybe it's a bit like tempered and it doesn't really get to move too far forward being like an actual like thing. Maybe there's like very little support or something after episode 9, but then maybe they start to realize, oh, but not to make the gun argument, but if people have the gun, then you need the space cops to fight the bad guys who have the guns kind of scenario. And that might be kind of where they end up at and are like, well, I guess it can exist, or they're going to prove that they need to exist. So, but
the whole thing's about Muppets, and we're all way off.
They go back to the Aki Aki Festival, dance their little buns off, and they discover the Force. No.
Yeah. Burning Han.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Spreezy, how's it going, dude? Hope not too many children. We're getting a child focused show or a children focused show with Skeleton Crew. Yeah, that's kind of where I feel like they run into a little bit of obstacles with the Georgia's sociological take of taking parents away from their kids before attachment. And you end up in a kind of a weird place. But I could also see like what if what if you took older kids or older people like late teens whose families are dead, who were wiped out by pirates and they got the force. They don't have the attachment to that thing that's not here anymore. So like why would they not be a candidate? They can't run back to mommy if she's had her fucking eyeball sucked out by a Gorax. No, I'm kidding. What?
Are you suggesting they defund New Republic schools and spend
Yes.
all the money, all the Imperial tax credits on Rey's charter Jedi Academy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And no benefits for the heroes of Episode 9, for the veterans of
No
Episode
one learns
9.
about the dark times. It's ridiculous.
But yeah, I mean, Meg
Order
says Judd
66
are
was an inside job.
already moaning about this film being woke. Yeah, they're going to, because they inherently live in a woke world, because woke actually sells and it actually makes money for these corporations, and all of their hemming and hawing doesn't change that. It doesn't matter if I think it's good or if I think it's bad. The fucking person who's having a fit about what I'm saying right now, that is the reality of it. Look at the demographics of who went to see the new Mario movie. It wasn't just white people. And that's what woke means, for the record. At the end of the day, it just means it's not subservient to a white male. That's really what they mean. And it's not all about them. It's not for them or about them only. And so that's where we're at. And even that fucking Budweiser thing with the trans person who did a fucking face or a Instagram ad for like 10 seconds, they flipped out about that. Go look at the stock now. It's higher than it was. Yeah, it went down 6 billion when people got nervous in the market, but now it's higher. It's fucking already rebounded. It's the boycotting is stupid and it doesn't work. And so they could go ahead and boycott all of Star Wars. It's stupid. It fucking doesn't work.
If they really wanted to bankrupt Anheuser-Busch, just have them do a stock buyback in which they just steal all of their employees' pensions.
If you want to fucking bankrupt Anheuser-Busch, how about you just fucking, make a state mandated AA for all those alcoholics, and they'll be done.
Like some assholes were telling me, Rob, this is the first time they've not brought Anheuser-Busch to Oktoberfest or some bullshit. I'm like, Oktoberfest is literally fucking on October. What are you talking about? I'm like, and I've been to Oktoberfest at least 4 times, and I never drank. No one was drinking Budweiser. Just letting you know.
No,
it don't work that way.
No.
Or Bud Light. There isn't a fucking light beer for 100 miles, Jason.
Yeah, no. I used to work at a liquor store, and the people that are drinking Bud and Bud Light are either like just old enough to drink and don't know any better, or it's because they're drinking like 36 beers over the weekend and that's the best price to get 36 beers, or whatever.
That
like
is exactly what it is. 100%.
Yeah.
That's Barrick's mentality. That's my family in Montana. When I go to their house, they just buy for consumption because they're going to drink 36 of something, and that's the least amount per beer that can do damage.
Yeah, I mean, like when, I remember me and my band fucking buying, what was it, National? Because it's all the money we had. We could get a fucking 12-pack. I think it was called National. It was awful, but it did the job. The Young Boomer says, I read the Zan trilogy, and I don't think it was that great. Zahn has written better stuff since. To say Heir to the Empire series should have been the sequels. It's a big reach. Yeah, you're not wrong. And like I always say, like it's not a dig on Zahn. It's not, because he wrote that at a time when Star Wars was way underdeveloped post original trilogy. Like concepts like what's a Padawan, that we didn't even know what a Padawan was. We didn't know what the rules were. We didn't know what the Republic was, what the Clone Wars were. We didn't, all of this stuff, all of the rules of the Force, what bringing balance to the Force and why that would be important and stuff like that. All that shit came like after that series. So he did a good job with extrapolating with what was on the table. And so I think the big takeaway, though, on the Heir to the Empire argument is simply people want, or a portion of the fan base want, something with Luke Skywalker as the protagonist going through some kind of mystery where he does detective work and solves stuff and figures out what's going on in some situation. That's at the end of the day, that's the takeaway, I think.
Not for nothing, I thought it was a huge missed opportunity when was it Bantam? Were they doing the books at the time?
Yeah,
publishing the books at the time.
Yeah, I think it started with them,
back.
Right.
They started hiring Drew Struzan to do covers. I'm like, they should have gone back and had him do covers to those 3 books. I mean, the painted covers are fine, but they're not Drew Struzan. He was readily available at that time, and I mean that's why I bought the Courtship the Courtship of Princess Leia. Horrible fucking novel, brilliant Drew Struzan cover, like probably the prettiest I've ever seen a Carrie Fisher alive or drawn. Like it's her in that crazy wedding dress, but whatever.
I mean, in a perfect world, they would have, on some of those really big ones, they would have had him illustrate it, or with paintings.
Done a reissue with the Struzan, you know what I mean? Like
I don't know if he's not an illustrator, but you know what I'm saying, like artwork to accompany the story.
Struzan, he is. He actually, those are airbrush and drawn with color pencil.
Yeah.
So they're not painted. They're
okay.
It's airbrush for blending, but it's drawn in pencil and graphite, airbrush, and then color pencil. Those are all lines.
So there was a convention, and Tamara Morrison was there talking about Book of Boba Fett, and I'm trying to find. Meg said what it was called. Yeah, Gold Coast, and I haven't seen like a video of this. And the quotes are going around from some places that aren't like the best sites for accuracy in reporting, I would say. So let's take this as being likely to be true and real, but also let's just hold on to it and say until I see a video of him saying this stuff, I'm a little bit like, well, okay. But he says, Tamora Morrison, who plays Boba Fett, says, I was supposed to be in The Mandalorian season 3, but nobody rang me. I was waiting for the phone call in New Zealand, waiting and waiting to give up.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was Chris says it was okay. So there is a video now. There is a video that says it was in Australia, and I can send you video, Jason. Okay, well, I guess we don't need the video since we got the quotes and they are accurate and real. 100. Thank you. That's good to know. So clearly, when they were doing Book of Boba Fett, they were telling Morrison he was going to be in Mandalorian 3. And the thing about it is, like, Mandalorian 3, like I said, was a shit show in terms of what they were making, what they were doing, and like, how things came about. And so it was just ever evolving. So clearly, that was the original plan, was to put Boba in it. Now, people have said, oh, that's weird because you said Boba Fett's going to be in. And I said, like, yeah, they're making Boba Fett stuff. They're making Boba Fett armor and shit. They're making new. But I was very clear. I don't know if it's for Book of Boba Fett 2. I don't know if it's for Mandalorian Season 4. Mandalorian Season 4 is the one thing that I know is happening around October. And so that makes the most sense. So maybe that story idea that was going to be in 3 was just moved to 4. You know what I mean? And recontextualized for the timeline a little bit. That's totally possible. I mean, we know that well, it doesn't seem like
he opens up a Kentucky Fried Gungan where he just serves Gungan.
I don't think Favreau, revises too much. Obviously, just copies and pastes the other shit in there. That's why everything's so disjointed in that fucking last season. Yeah. Excuse me. Well, then he goes on to say. Tamara Morrison goes on to say, well, that Mando guy stole a few chapters of my book. It was painful watching him turn up with some black new lethal sword, and the way he turned up in my Book of Boba. he just destroyed everybody. I'm sure this guy is ruining my show, but I couldn't say anything. I'm the writer, so I have to bear it, I guess. So yeah, it's a little bit
Facetious,
like
a little bit.
it's a little. I'm sure it's a little bit.
Facetious.
Yeah, I would say so. A little sarcastic or facetious,
Right.
and you know, but he's not wrong. Like I the idea of them like turning up and then being best space Mando bros like in the finale, that was cool. Like that made sense. I don't think it took away anything from, sort of like when Action Jackson turns up, or Grief Karga is in like Predator, and he's with like Arnold, like, yeah, those are fucking cool dudes. You know what I mean? Like that's what they were kind of going for, I think. But when you really get down to it, he did steal the show. Like Mando stole the show from Book of Boba, or from Boba Fett in the Book of Boba Fett. So it's,
To be fair,
yeah,
people weren't that engaged with Boba Fett's story. Had they been really engaged with it, it may have felt annoying that Mando showed up. By
right,
that point, you'd be like, "No, we're
right.
in this story. Why are you doing this?" The
But
fact that
they,
when he shows up, people are like, "Oh, fucking, this is awesome," is really a problem with the remainder of the series.
yeah, yeah, it was like that. Like the stuff that worked should have been extrapolated upon. The stuff with him with the Tuscans and stuff like that. That's the stuff that should have been like most of the series when you get down to it. It should have been Dances with Wolves with Boba Fett, the series, and then the other stuff didn't need to really be there. And then he should have went on with him becoming daimyo later on. Like when you look back at it, it's easy to say it, but he goes on to say, "I think there's a
at the time.
I think there. Oh, okay. You were on board with like the show until it veered like at that one
No,
point.
I liked episode 2. I didn't much like episode 1, and then they
Mm,
went and killed all the people I liked in episode 3, and I was like, well, "This is fucking ridiculous."
yeah,
Like, go watch it.
yeah.
Go watch my takes.
No,
I
no,
make it
no,
not up.
no. I think I agree with you. I thought that we were going to see that I was thinking that if the Tuscan mom and son were going to live, and then they were going to bring more Tuscans to help Boba by the end. It was going to all like kind of tie in a way, and just
Bring
didn't.
water back to Tatooine or some shit like that.
But yeah, nothing like that happened. I think there's a few changes going on. We also come under the big umbrella known as Disney now too. So it's one of many previous few conversations we had in LA. The dialogue began like, "Oh, look, we're having a few changes. We're having a few cutbacks." And while you hear that on the different finish of the road, it's no good attempting to barter any more cash. That's for positive. So we'll see what occurs.
What the
So
fuck is he saying?
yeah, it's kind of a
I
hard
don't
one.
understand any
Hold
fucking
on.
thing you just said right there.
Yeah. The dialogue began like,
I'm
"Oh,
stupid."
look, we're having a few changes. We're having a few cutbacks."
Okay.
And while you hear
JPEG's
that
like,
on the
"Hey, we're spending too much money,"
and while
or
you hear that
something.
on the different finish of the road, it's no good attempting to barter any more cash. That's for positive. So we'll see what occurs. So the last part just doesn't really make any sense. I think he says when they say we're cutting back, you're not going to be able to get any more cash to do anything better with it, with that you need as it's being made.
Or
I think that's what he's
Has
saying.
Tamura Morrison been completely taken over by Chat GPT? Like, has it infiltrated him? Like, I feel like I'm talking to a bot. Yeah. I get what
You
you're
might be
saying,
right.
though. It's just
You
the
might
way
be
it's
right.
phrased. It's like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
That's what happens when when it's just like somebody quoted verbatim. People
Like
misspeak.
when you read that,
Um,
I wanted to hang up the phone and tell you Tamura's dead. Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but and then as Azitri says, he said Mando and Book of Boba pushed back his used buy date a few more years. He bought a Boba Fett shirt and said to the shop later, "That's me," and they didn't believe him. But yeah, I definitely can see how they were going for one thing at that time and then didn't get to do it. We talked about like, why does, you've said a lot of times, like, look at like how the concept art of like the fire scenes look at night and stuff, and look at like what they did. What they did was just black. It was just almost like him, like he was doing a one-man show, on some of those shots. And some of them are really good.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff's really, like the train sequences, that stuff's all like good, but then when you get to those smaller moments, they're really low rent kind of for Star Wars.
I mean, it's a big deal when when directors put together mood boards or concept boards or a specific piece of key art. Your DP's supposed to be holding that concept art to what you're shooting. It's the ones that stay on board. There's plenty of stories about this. Even Zack Snyder, of all people, was talking about this with the Russo brothers like 2 days ago on their pizza shop. I don't know what the fuck, pizza school film thing. They just sit around. They saw Hot Wings and try to get clever. It's just some fucking show where they talk to directors about movies. It's totally fun and worth watching. But he was saying how, like, when he met up with the DP that he currently uses now on The Watchmen, he was the only guy on set holding up the artwork and going, "Is this the right? I don't think we got the right shot." Everyone's like, "It doesn't really matter." And he's like, "No, it kind of matters." Like, that's what I was telling you, when you get on a rhythm, when you get on a rhythm, you can start cranking shit out, and then 20 cogs in, be like, we moved too far away from the original thing.
Yeah.
And that's why you have showrunners or people in charge or an art director or someone to make certain that they're constantly overseeing the overlook, that it all was the thing we all agreed on making, because it can slip away as individual people start making their own stuff, getting into a groove. It just falls away from you.
Well, in this instance, they like literally said the money fell away.
The money fell away, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Like, that easily could have been. I look at that concept art for that specific shot, and it looks like they may have originally budgeted to go out to like Joshua Tree or somewhere out there, and the budget was like, "Nah, you're shooting it here on the set."
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the focal length in the concept art was way different than the actual shot. It's two different things.
And I'm with Bram on this one. Bram says, "I would have loved a Boba show when he actually goes bounty hunting and something and sees more original bounty hunters like Dengar or Bosk." And like, yeah, I would rather have had that. And I'm still hoping that they bring in like Daniel Logan
the good, like, the bad, and the not, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. To do like, when he was really coming up. You know what I mean? Like when Boba was like 20 years old and he's like going through, and Bosk, he knows these guys and their competitors or their friends and stuff like that. But the problem I think that they run into with at Disney is that they decided to make Mando also a bounty hunter Mandalorian. Like, he could have been anything. Now, for the story, he could have been anything, though. Like, Mandalorians aren't just automatically bounty hunters as their sidekicks. They could be mercenaries, they could be security, they could be anything with their skill set. That's, protection wise or thievery or whatever. But like, they made him a bounty hunter, so it's like it just steps on its own toes. Like, I really do feel like Boba Fett and Mando didn't really need to exist at the same time. Like, it would have been, Boba Fett either could have been dead or come back somebody different in a different way, a different man. They're kind of moving him into that different man territory, and that's why I think they made him like daimyo of Jabba the Hutt's palace, so he could become like a crime lord sort of thing, and then it's different. I think that's what they're going.
Heart of gold.
But yeah, but that's not.
It's ridiculous.
All about family. When you're at Jabba's palace, when you hear your family, it's like an Olive Garden on Tatooine. No, but they got to. But we want to know. Our brains are like, what was it like when Boba Fett was a bounty hunter? What was he doing? What were those stories? And we want to see that on screen. But I don't want to just see the Mandalorian reskinned with Boba Fett now. Because believe it or not, like, when you get down to it, if you just take away the years of nostalgia and, like, playing with toys when you're a child, Mando's done more bounty hunting on screen, defines what it is more than Boba Fett has had a chance to in this on screen. It just is what it's math at this point. It's weird, but that's why I'm kind of like, don't really need Boba Fett. I'm not really that excited about Boba Fett. now with what they've done. And the only way to get me excited is Daniel Logan as young Boba Fett and what it was like for him when he was up and coming to become the most notorious bounty hunter in the galaxy. And and you could do things where he does really bad shit, and then like maybe kind of goes like, oh man, like, is that me? Like, am I that guy? You know what I mean? And then it might explain why older Boba is sort of aged out of not wanting to be that, wanting to be more than that and stuff. So there's like kind of, he wouldn't make the change then, but you can start to say you can start laying the groundwork for it. And then we have Book of Boba Fett where he does make that change. And then that way you don't have the Mandalorian, you don't have Mando, you don't Din necessarily coexisting at the same time as him, right? That kind of fixes it in a way, but I don't know, man. I'm hoping that something inspired comes along, but
Like a new writer.
a new writer, yeah, on Boba Fett. Like I don't think it was a bad idea to like try it. I don't think it was a bad idea to bring Boba Fett into the Mando's story at that point and to like try it and stuff. But ultimately, yeah, it needs something else, and he needs to be so much more different than Din. And like the only difference right now is that like Boba's a little bit like, what the fuck, like about the cult shit a little bit, but he's also like wanting to rule with respect, which ultimately means he has an internal code by which he lives, and everything dictates that. And then Din has his little space cult code. It ends up kind of operating at the same fucking level. Whether you could change out the small amounts of the value system, but it amounts to the same fucking thing, right? That's why they're friends.
Look, if I was a Wall Street Disney suit who came in and was just in charge of everything overnight, because that's usually how it works, I would just bet we're gonna throw all the money we can at the John Wick dudes, and we're just gonna kill off all of his fucking friends that we got to know in the first season, and put him on a man on a mission, that will ultimately take him to, I don't know, I just want Boba Fett killing shit, give me that fucking thing,
No. We talked about this before. We were like, yeah, have Boba Fett in that fucking Bacta tank fucking chilling out, and while he's asleep, they fucking come in and they fucking, they John Wick his Rancor.
They kill his Rancor, and now we got to get revenge, right?
Yeah, I mean, but and his speeder bike gang and everybody else. Well, look who it is.
Whoa, hello.
How's it going, dude?
It's in the tiniest room.
I just I just caught up with your stream, and where you were just talking about Boba Fett and perhaps an earlier Daniel Logan, like doing the really big stuff or whatever he did. I think in the past it could have been bloody, it could have been any violent, all of that. Back when we had Book of Boba Fett coming out, my friend Jason Ward said something about sounds like King Conan to me.
Right.
And then we got the quote saying that they used King Conan as a reference. And a friend of mine, Captain Pennsylvania, walked me through King Conan, because I didn't know hill of beans about King Conan. But that's exactly what King Conan was, is that you went back in, he's kind of remembering these events in his life, different places he went, different things he did, and they were extremely violent. And he was doing all these quests and killing lots of folks, doing Conan type things. And he's at a later stage of his life where that's not what he wants to do anymore. And he's leveraging some of the friends that he made along the way, some of the tribes that or planets, whatever it is, that he helped in whatever the event was, and he's calling upon them. He's building a coalition. He's building a kingdom, so to speak, right? Leveraging all of these relationships that he had. Well, that's exactly what you're saying, and it goes back to that King Conan thing they talked about before. That's still the series that we didn't get.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if and that would allow them to not make the audience feel like they just abandoned the original idea that we've already been on board with, and then it would allow them to go and tell us like stories about when he was, shrewd or whatever. It was, super evil, and but also making enemies and allies that'll pay off and stuff like that. And yeah, it's so it's kind of sad that they've moved away from it, but I got a feeling that because Book of Boba Fett performed, it didn't do badly. It did extremely well for them. So the fact that they're like seem to be at least pretending to move away from it, if they are, maybe it has to do with that film. Maybe that film is the thing that just made stuff that's making that fall aside because it's not important to it. Or he'll just show up and be like, yeah, I'm the daimyo of Tatooine, and that's his, you know what I mean? Like that's it. That's all we need from you for that project. Well, it's got to complicate things.
Yeah, and I see two kind of issues coming up with Mando season 4.
Mm-hmm.
One is if he's going to be a bounty hunter again, that N1's not going to get the job done. Secondly, it ties back to Boba Fett and the relationship he has with Boba on Tatooine. So will they bring Boba Fett to be a resource he calls upon since he's living on Navarro? You can see him going to Mandalore as a resource. You can see him going to Tatooine as a resource, like to call upon folks as he's searching out the Outer Rim.
What did Jabba do? What did Jabba do? He hired Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So with Boba being the new Jabba, he would hire Din. I could see that as being like something that just kind of naturally makes sense if he goes back to bounty hunting. But I also, with what we think we know about Ahsoka,
yeah,
he's saying for the most part, I want to, me and my apprentice Din Grogu want to hunt down Imperials and arrest them. Because it's easy work. It's easy for my apprentice. He could stormtroopers aren't a big deal to him. It's safe. I could train him with that stuff. So that's what I want to do. But he's going to go and take that job as the Empire is literally returning. Like it's the worst time ever to decide that's my new job. Like that's not what he signed up. What he signed up for in that bar is like going like, you know what? It's like the day before 9/11 going, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to just like study terrorism in Afghanistan because it's not like really that dangerous. and then, here we are, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what's happening. So I do wonder how much of it will be that. I mean, the implication just from the narrative itself is it's going to be all that. But I wonder how much of it will actually be that, you know what I mean? Like how many times he'll be doing those next 8 episodes, he'll be doing that kind of work or whatever.
Well, they also got to drag things out just a little bit, don't they? Like if Ahsoka ends where you said, like everybody's defeated, and Skeleton Crew plays right into the same storyline. There's some overlap. Tying into their story and what's going on.
And it is still questionable. Like the Skeleton Crew's going to sit in there. It is questionable exactly how deep it intersects.
Yeah. And it's in the same universe, the same time, right?
Yeah.
The Mando 4, then presumably the movie that ties all the threads together. So we can't get to the movie too soon. So where does Mando 4 fit in before all the threads come together? Right. Presumably, that would be when Thrawn comes back. He's the big threat. We've got this big movie event. He's here. Things are bad. Let's go.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it makes me think that season 4 would ultimately be about Din if he is the protagonist of that film. And the one thing about I do wonder though, is Din the protagonist of that film if Filoni's the one directing it and making it?
Oh, it doesn't have to be at all. No.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be, but it does seem to like almost imply, or I almost get the impression it is more like of an Avenger style thing. And if
Right.
so, if that's the case, he's probably the one with the most overlap of all of these various characters that'll
Well, if
come
it's an
into play.
Avengers type thing, you've got Ahsoka and Boba and Din
Yeah.
and
You know what I fear?
And he's
Bo-Katan.
written most of them. What's that?
You
What's that,
know
Rob?
what I fear? I'm gonna put it out there, and I blame
The
myself
dark
for saying it. Nope, that the movie will be
chicken.
called Rangers of the New Republic, and they're all
What?
gonna become Mando's sort of a ranger right now. He's an unofficial one. We've already
Mm-hmm.
seen their headquarters at the Top Gun bar, right? Ahsoka will join the
Yeah.
team, and they're gonna be the new Rangers that go around to deal with.
The
Hence the
Rangers.
Avengers analogy.
That'd be
Yeah.
very anticlimactic.
It would. You'd say, "Have you not been watching Star Wars recently?"
Well, we are of different minds on some of this, but I don't want to go.
No, you're getting
rehash
there
some of that.
slowly. You're getting there. You're just fighting it. Like I got you under that mind meld thing. And you're like, no, I don't want to. But
That's what
eventually,
my
you're like,
progressive
yeah,
friends say about me too. They say you're getting there, Brian. You're getting slowly. We're converting.
One day you're gonna want Social Security and it's gonna be gone, and then you're gonna be like, "What happened? I paid into it. What's going on?"
Still a conservative, still a Republican. But no, I just think if we're going to end up with Thrawn coming back in the movie, that would be the big movie event. We can't get him back too soon.
Yeah.
So Mando 4 is about what?
Well, we did see in Mando 3, essentially a meeting of the 5 families. And some of those one of those families likes to do pirate raids on shipping lanes or something to that effect. So that guy right there, that's a whole nother Gideon. It's a whole nother Gideon to like deal with when you get down to it. To the whole Gideon thing. That was basically 3 seasons of content of him, dodging and fighting with that. Then there's 5 of them though. There's more. And so there's a chance we kind of get into that story takes place while there's just those, and then Thrawn does come back. Or the other question is, does Thrawn come back in that 4th season when he just started hunting the Empire and he's on the Empire's radar? They know, and he's like, yeah, come after me, because when you come after me, I kill you and I take you in. I get paid. Like it could be a thing like that. But then Thrawn comes back and then, oh no, that's not cool. But yeah, so it's like, it really depends on when that movie comes out. If that movie is happening in 2026, then I think that's how it's likely going to be, is that it's going to be dealing with that as Thrawn is returning. And then but if it's later than that, we're going to have more seasons of these shows. And so that just tells me that they're going to come up with some sort of event that will happen based off of all of these pieces that we don't know yet, because we don't know what their story is that leads up to that would let us know what the capstone to what that event would be. So but ultimately what the simplified version of it, the elevator pitch would be the Republic fights Thrawn's Empire, right? That's what it would come down to. And and then I would also I'm hoping that Thrawn in the story though, or in these shows, has a lot more to do before that movie, and that he doesn't just come back for the film. I'm hoping, other than the Ahsoka show, I'm hoping their series. I'm hoping that we get more, because he really has to die. If he is the antagonist of that film, they got to kill him in that film. And then because we do have to make way for the Imperial remnants to go and then embrace Snoke as supreme leader, unless he's down for it. But if you want to make him the most cunning, vile villain that you can, nobody's going to be like, yeah, let's remake Palpatine. Let's just why would you want to do that? You know what I mean? You were one of those
guys. It would have been an interesting. I don't think they're going to do this, Jason, but it would have been an interesting take if you were adapting the events of Heir to the Empire to make Snoke the Jorah Saboth surrogate, right? Where Thrawn's working with him, but then the flip is that Thrawn doesn't get the better hand of Sabath. Snoke gets the better hand of Thrawn in a way,
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
if at the end of the last command Sabath won? You know what I mean? And ended up running the Empire, and that set up the whole new bad guy for the whole EU series of books, kind of thing.
Yeah, you're spot on, Rob. And we already know like the Rook ending has got to be different than Heir, because they already brought him in. Rook was brought into Rebels, and he's dead. So he's not going to kill Thrawn. There's another twist that could be thrown in that Thrawn ends up going back to the Chiss Ascendancy, and that opens up the space for the First Order to come in. I suspect you got to kill him, but I'm also a little dubious that they have the guts to do it.
Well, in the film, you have to have a big thing happens in that movie. You know what I mean? You can't have him like not. So there has to be some kind of victory in the movie, I would say, especially if it's like the Avenger style one, and that's why I'm just. What's that, George?
I think Snoke can have a big jazz number where he dances and he sings.
We could throw another.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could throw another curveball in, and that Thrawn does come back for Mando season 4, and then the movie event is something like the Grisk. In the old days it was the Yuzong Vong, and that's the bigger threat.
Oh, I don't agree. This is for kids. This is for kids.
I'm curious if in the Ahsoka series we have any if in that Ahsoka series like we never hear anything about the Chiss Ascendancy, I'm gonna be like, that's just some book stuff, and Filoni and what's his name don't care about it. You know what I mean? Like it's not their
I just
thing.
want to hear.
I'm curious.
Hear Filoni talk. Hold on, I want to hear what it sounds like. I was thinking about the Chiss Ascendancy today, Jason.
Oh yeah, were you?
I was in line. I was going by double animal style. I was like, I want a little Chiss Ascendancy on my French fries. You know what I'm saying?
You think it's that blue mayo, don't you? That blue mayo you can put on In-N-Out fries.
Mayo. Thank you. That's a good idea.
That's just a TikTok thing, dude. It's not real.
All right, I gotta go.
That's just a TikTok thing. But
ultimately, that's sort of the Thrawn story, though. He's come to the where we are in Star Wars, right? He's come into the Empire because he's worried about the bigger looming threat out there. And in the old days, it used to be the Yuzong Vong, and that was a big threat. But then in the newer books, it's the Grisk. So you could very well set that up in Mando 4, and then Mando 4 is about this bigger threat that's much larger to the universe.
The thing about those books that doesn't sit with the narrative that we think we know is that he's essentially the protagonist. He's doing things for the right reason. It's kind of like the way that it kind of plays out in those stories. And in the story that we seem to be getting from Filoni, it doesn't sound to me like he is there's anything altruistic about his motivations. And now it could ultimately be an Anakin Skywalker situation where you start off doing something for the right reasons and then you become corrupted by the pursuit of power in the end, and you lost track of what you were doing and who you are.
We also saw that in Celebration, Filoni said he's working closely with Timothy Zahn on writing Thrawn. So I expect him to be consistent with Zahn's...
No, Santa, no. I'm just right over his shoulder, breathing in his ear. You know what I'm saying? Right over. You should write about the ascendancy.
Ascend. No.
It's just I don't know. To me,
context.
He should be consistent with Zahn's version of Thrawn, since he's consulting closely with him.
The cynical side of me heard that and said they let him look at the script so they could use this to fight back against people on the internet who are saying it's not Zahn. That's literally that's where my head went. And so I don't doubt it happened, but did they, was it meaningful? Was it impactful? If so, if it is, or if, why isn't Zahn a writer on the show?
Right.
Because Jon Favreau won't let him.
But that's or in this case, Filoni, like if it was like Zahn co-wrote an episode, then I'm gonna believe it. But if he consulted and his contributions did not amount to 30%, he didn't do anything. He won't get credit. But we will know that what he contributed was under 30% of the script stuff. And so I don't know. I don't know what to expect on that. And like, I know that Zahn said there is like 9 years of content that I could write in the future. And it was sort of him, like sort of winking, like I got stuff I'm going to be doing, in that. So that there's basically 9 years for him to resolve that Grisk situation while Ron's lost. You know what I'm saying though, of content.
It sounds like something my dermatologist would tell me. We got 9 years to clear up this Grisk situation.
Wait, breaking news. Timothy Zahn's Grisk Sitch. It's a new book called The Grisk Sitch by Timothy Zahn. Coming never.
But look, realistically, that opens up another revenue for another spin-off series that could be done in a different direction than what we've been experiencing so far. And when you're looking at where we're headed with the sequel trilogy and the Mandoverse leading into that, another avenue to pursue would be what's going on in the Chiss Ascendancy with the Grisk in that big confrontation or whatever that happens there that draws Thrawn back. That could be that big culminating event. And then you've got another whole area of the universe to explore.
I'm gonna go on a limb, Santa, and say that's never gonna happen.
It's a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity.
If Dave Filoni's doing it, he's just going to call it Grisky Business. You know that, right? That's what he's going to call it. Not the film. You want a Star Wars film called Grisky Business? Because that's what he'll do.
How did you know? I can't be. Kathy's going to be so mad at me. She's going to spill over my can of Jelly Bellies again. I can't chase it. Why you got to say that? You're ridiculous. Oh, man, I got to come up with a new one.
That's what I do.
Oh, damn.
Well, no.
I want to go play some putt-putt. Bye.
I'm curious to see, like I said, how much time we end up having. Like that, there was a trade story recently saying that it was coming in 2026. If it is coming in 2026, that would mean 2025 and a lot of 2024 would be off the table for Filoni, as he will be working on that movie to some extent, probably, depending on when it would release. But maybe late 2024 doesn't leave like a lot of time for there to be like another season of Ahsoka, for instance. It's possible if it's like already written, you know what I mean, by some chance, and he just kept writing and it's been done or something. But to me, like it does, if that is true, if that's accurate, if that is happening at that time, then I would, like I said, this like next season of Mando may even be meandering because it might not be able to go too far into anything else. So that might be why
of Mando. You mean the current season of Mando?
I literally mean meandering in that it goes by. We have 4 episodes of bounty hunting and 4 episodes in between those where he's looking for the next bounty. And then like the last episode, it's like done. Like that really could be what that next season is. I hope that's not the case. I hope it's, much deeper than that. But it like the end of that show was like promising. It was weird. It was like, it felt like it was promising. We're going back to the format, guys. Like that's what it felt like it was trying to say at the very end. But then also when we know that like Thrawn's coming back and a movie is coming as well, you're like, well, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, what does this end up like amounting to? It's weird. It's really weird. And like what we think we know, we're like, why doesn't the movie just hit then? Why doesn't the movie just come right after, Ahsoka? Like why isn't the 2025 film? Because it almost feels like it should be with what we think we know, if that is the premise.
Well,
right?
if Ahsoka is Act 2, right? Like the darkest hour.
Yeah.
If it ends at the darkest hour,
yeah.
Then what follows that?
I'll tell you what follows, and I said it before. They need a whole series of Mando where they realize the Imperials are showing up and it's worse and worse and worse, and they don't have the firepower, and they got to form. There's no army, so they got to form an elite team, the Rangers, right, to take on the threat. And it's Mando and all of his elite buddies. Yeah.
Boba Fett,
Rangers of the Republic,
Ahsoka Tano,
the
space
Vestas.
mercenary.
Right, Paley Moto as Murdoch, right? They bust her out of a Jawa
Vespa game
prison.
Tricks.
R5.
Paley Moto supplies.
A mouse and the rogue mouse droid, right?
And the mouse droid cops.
Mouse droid cops.
Yeah. I mean, and then you would, I guess. Well, Jude Law's character, when that role was being cast, when they were doing auditions, the people who were auditioning for it were told you're going to die. It's one season. But then it became Jude Law in the role. Jude Law got the part. And so that makes me wonder, is Jude Law did Jude Law just want to come on and do one season of Skeleton Crew and then die? But if he didn't, there's more, and they got Jude Law because they're going to be doing this film, then you would also have Jude Law from Skeleton Crew showing up in that movie as a Jedi who's going to help Ahsoka and as Bridger, and so you'd have like three Jedi. You'd have Mando, Boba, Speederbike Gang, and Paley Moto.
So. Yeah, Filoni has told me that Jude Law says Dumbledore don't die, he multiply, and that's how he got more episodes.
No, that was actually Bebe's Kids, which is the only movie Filoni will watch before he writes a new season of any show.
I'm telling you right now, if I could meet Dave Filoni, I would just love to watch Bebe's Kids with him. I love that movie.
If you guys ever run into Dave Filoni on the street, just pitch him your Bebe's Kids sequel ideas only.
Yes.
Nothing on Star Wars. Just Bebe's Kids.
I am off to get the log line done right now, Jason.
Can we make that our show's crappy contribution to the Star Wars culture? Is that we start
That's it?
Where people just pitch Bebe's Kids to Dave Filoni?
Sad to say, I think my Felonious voice has been the crappy contribution, because I've had several people tell me that when they hear him, they can't not fucking hear it.
Oh yeah, no. Desmond and I have had people who work on the show who worked with Filoni laugh that they could only hear your voice even when he's speaking. So
yes.
Hey, I gotta drop out, but
good to see you. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow morning, right?
I hope so.
Right, rad. I'm gonna hang out with you tomorrow.
All right. Hey, Rob. Thanks for letting me hang out with you guys. Catch you later.
See you later, dude. Bye. So Aria sent a Donkey Kong Cash super chat again. 20. Thank you, Aria. You are too kind. Can Steven bring Thrawn into the future of Rey's film? Now, I would say no. And somebody said because he's like 100, right? I think you just change it for the films. You just say he gets blood transfusions and he lives forever. He has the secret to immortality, or Chiss lived to be 200, something like that.
Somehow Thrawn don't age.
Ron don't crack, right? But the problem with that happening is that you would have like Ahsoka, and in the Ahsoka Tano show, series, in the Ahsoka Tano series, Thrawn's back. Oh shit! And then we have this movie and Thrawn's in it. So where was he during all of the sequel trilogy era and all of that stuff? Like, you know what I mean? It ends up being like, oh no, he got lost again, or he never got found. It would have to be something weird like that. So that's where it just like doesn't line up for me. But the one thing that I would say that kind of does link to the Rey thing potentially, or that I keep wondering about is when they create that ship or fleet. We still don't know how they go to get Thrawn and his team back and bringing them home.
Dude, where's my fleet?
Well, when that happens, do they end up with the vessels that allow them to eventually find Exegol? Is that how they end up making contact with it? Well, no, that is still no, that's still work that this has to like do at the end. Is
the comics do it? They're all connected.
This is the
right?
like story in between the story, and we're supposed to see how the First Order comes about. So what I'm kind of proposing here is that we may end up with a small amount of, Thrawn gets wiped out. Most of the forces are defeated by the Rangers of the New Republic, as Rob calls them. And
yes.
And then at the end, one of the, like, for instance, Hux is like the last guy, the last one of those cats in that council, and he has
just
that fleet.
The Hux of us.
But and he takes that to Exegol, and then that's when the connection is made. You know what I'm saying?
Star Destroyers to Exegol and waits out another 20 years.
Between the First Order and that, and then that's where they get their Snoke clone, and then they go back to the main galaxy, and then that's where they start working on the project to corrupt Ben Solo and so on. Like, that's when their plan just shifts after that defeat. And then it would also, with that big defeat of Thrawn, would make the galaxy go, whew, the Empire is not a problem now. We really whipped it.
Sounds like the greatest movie of all time. It's going to end up in the top 3.
Oh,
can't wait.
Rob, I'm not saying that's going to happen in the movie. I'm talking about like in all of these shows that we got, these week to weekers and all the stuff that could happen in one of them. And you could. It's not out of the realm of possibility that you make the Snoke thing better, that you make it cooler, that you make Palpatine working through Snoke way more interesting. It doesn't now, just because episode 9 isn't good doesn't mean that the story getting to that isn't interesting. Well, like it's inherently I'm
a little bit more conspiratorially subversive than you on that one. I think they've already made it cooler by making Gideon's fucking clone story so incredibly dumb and ridiculous that the Snoke thing already looks better. Like, you're like, yeah, that makes a lot more sense, the whole Palpatine bit versus cloning a 67-year-old man several times to give him force powers with midi-chlorian injections.
Like Dale says, Vader's already been to Exegol in the comics, so what are they finding their way there for? Because they don't have the Wayfinder. Darth Vader's dead. Palpatine, they think, is dead. And if they have some indication something happened, something that makes them, that makes them think, then they have to touch base there. Jason. So until we have an indication that the Shadow Council and or Thrawn even know about Exegol or anything about it, that is a discovery that they have to make at some point.
John's already figured it out.
What's that?
Season 4. This is the Wayfinder.
This is the Wayfinder. There we go.
Tell you.
It turns out they are all the Mandos were in on it the whole time.
Whole time.
Yeah.
The usual suspects.
I know you don't like it, Rob, but when they go, if they go and they do anything like that and the Sith cult shit like that, the fucking internet people are going to be all about it. It would be highly successful.
I'll be here telling them they're full of shit anyway. I don't care. The Transformers movies were highly successful,
but if I mean that number one, that has to happen, and you're already saying it's going to be bad no matter what. You don't know that. We don't know.
You're right.
It might be good.
99.9% certain.
Or I mean, well, that's you shouldn't watch that show anymore. If like that's really where you're at with it, it's like you're just like decided like it's gonna be just all of it.
I'm not deciding. I'm just playing the laws of averages here. Mm-hmm. Like
yeah,
they haven't been very good at conspiratorial exposition. Like so far they just haven't. I mean,
but it doesn't mean that that's going to happen in a Jon Favreau story or in a Jon Favreau like written thing. Like Ahsoka's not Jon Favreau, other than him being like a producer on it. That's like not a Jon Favreau.
Once we see the Ahsoka series, it's for all I know. Like I liked Filoni's episodes he directed. I didn't like Filoni as an actor, as an X-wing pilot. You know? So,
I'm not about that either.
Yeah, but
yeah, no,
I'm not prescribing me to dislike something. I'm just saying I have every right to be skeptical that any of this stuff will work out because they just haven't been good at the stuff that they've made up on their own. And and it's more convoluted than the stuff we've already gotten, which was fairly convoluted. You know, when you start to think about why would you put a bunch of Star Destroyers in a hole somewhere for God knows how many fucking years, you know, and everyone, it's just not how they even repairing them and keeping them. And I mean, this is ridiculous the more you think about it, you know. Shit falls apart, you know, like.
I mean, because like at some point, like if this is going how we think it's going, they have like that Project Necromancer thing, which is like we gotta somehow resurrect Palpatine, but it might be through Project Necromancer that they end up finding a wayfinder, or that there are wayfinders, or some kind of hint that if they need to go out there and find it, and then but then you also have like well, anyways, like Dell says, you can't tell the internet there's more than one perspective of storytelling. You have to show them. So they have to find things that makes everything make sense and connects the dots. And so that's why that's why I think when you get like post Thrawn, then that's when you bring Snoke in. And that's when you start to like connect and you're like, oh, and then that's why we got to those bad guys. And like that film will be big. So when that film happens, it would be, I mean, for instance, in this conversation, if you were to go Thrawn dies at the end of that film and then you do them, Snoke showing up post credits, then that would be like, oh, okay. Then people who only mostly watch the films, for instance, would be like, oh, now I understand how that happened or why we got to episode 7.
My favorite grievance that's going to be going on at the time is how Disney killed Thrawn as if he didn't fucking die in the books. But like,
oh right, yeah, no, yeah. But like it's also like important to also remember that like Leia and Luke Skywalker know who Snoke is. They don't know it's Palpatine, but they know who he is. So there's like interesting stuff that could happen. I mean, if Snoke shows up and he's like leading those people and meets with them, I mean, they might some of that stuff has happened in comics to some extent, but it's like I don't know. I'm not sure.
You think they'll CGI him, or do you think they'll deepfake Snoke's face? Like, just take the CGI models if they'll deepfake the face.
I don't know. Like that's what the one thing that I really dislike that about their brains with cloning stuff. Like when they did the Snokes and the tanks, they just wanted to use the same model, I think. But like Snoke in the tank, why is he all falling apart? Like he should be. You know what I mean? Like, is it just to like keep up appearances? Like were they putting different ones in that he was using as puppets? Like, or is it like because like the idea that he's in one and it decays seems way
he's
more
made out
cool.
of tofu, and so he's he's expanding when he's in the water for a long time. You gotta squeeze him out really good.
But it's like but when you look at it, if you just read it for what it is, you're like, oh, they clone him like that, and that's just how he looks. And then it's like, that's dumb. And then, oh, I'm going to clone myself as like a 67-year-old man. It's like, that's dumb. You know what I mean? It doesn't, none of that stuff really makes like a lot of sense to me. And, and like George Lucas, when he had them clone Tamara Morrison, the clones all look like young 20-year-old versions, you know what I mean? Of Tim. Like that makes sense. That tracks for me. So, Dale's all Jar Jar is the key to all of this, George Lucas. But yeah, I mean, like there's like there's a way of like I think there's a way of telling a compelling story without, like you mentioned, Dale, like different perspectives on how this all gets done. And it's like, yeah, that book, you might think it's these Imperials or whatever, and they made their contribution behind the scenes for what's on screen. But it was this thing on screen is the dominant story, that we're going to tell with it. All of it's possible. It's all I'm saying. And then I understand Rob's cynicism too on like some of it, like on what like this last season of Book of Boba Fett, like they were not good at telling a macro story. They were not good at having those ideas conveyed in things that actually mattered that were happening to our characters. A lot of the times we were just told about those things, and or characters had gripes about the climate in which they lived, as opposed to events, story that we saw on screen. And so I'm not, I understand like that part of it, but it's like I always have to look at the next thing that they do as being a change, and with change there's always a chance for improvement. And I know at a certain point, if Favreau just keeps writing like what he has done for his last two shows, if that becomes like the average, it's just going to kind of drop off. But then again, like
it's worse than being bad in a way. It becomes boring and irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the average fan, like the average fan doesn't. They don't remember Snoke clones are tied into this thing and all. That's like fan service. That's like lore. That's it's putting lore before story. It's just your scripts can't be about connecting dots. They got to be about real human experience on some level. On some level, even if it's a cheeseburger archetype. Like think about this. Like the movie League of Our Own. Those screenwriters, they went and talked to all those women who actually were in those, the baseball leagues and stuff, but they still made a movie that was popcorn, that was still accessible by all people. It wasn't a ultra 4-hour long drama, right? It had heart, I mean, everyone kind of shed a little tear at the end, but it knew how to do it in a fun and cinematic, summer movie cinematic way. So,
right.
But if it was just about connecting the dots on how the women's baseball league had got done, it wouldn't be interesting. You had to tie it to people that you care about, and that's and you're losing the caring when it's just when we're going here and we got that and that sets up for this, and that's I don't know about that. It's almost like a RPG quest like mentality.
Most of the writers that I've had conversations with over the years have said some form of, in essence, structure is what happens when the writing's good. Structure, you know what I mean? Like, so you don't just go in with structure and like, here's the structure and then write into the structure. Like it doesn't,
it's not an ad libs for screenwriting. Yeah.
Right. And like, so Favreau, I think is aware of this. I think that's his perspective. And so the difference is when the writing's not good, it does seem like it has bad structure because the writing is just inherently messy, and the characters aren't going where they want to go. The ideas that are being conveyed aren't what the story wants to convey at that time and stuff like that. And that's like a huge problem. That's just a huge problem for Star Wars in general, though, is that it has to tie
into the habit. My theory now, my personal theory is I'm less interested in structure. Like, structure is what you do as people. Like, we tend to connect things, like we find the patterns. And Lucas could say, hey, here's a story, the Joseph Campbell story circle, the 1.0, and Hero's Journey. And you could write to that. But at a point now, like, characters will inherently move in the directions that those characters will make if they make decisions that are in key with their core essence. If they're making human decisions and they're suffering human consequences, and they will move in the directions. With Favreau, I feel the hand of the writer moving people around. I don't feel the characters making those decisions. That's the difference for me, and that's where I check out, because I'm like, well, anything can just randomly happen for any reason because he just feels like making it happen now, and that doesn't feel like we're witnessing a story. It feels like we're playing Calvin ball where the rules change at any given moment. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not engaged with that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like I said, like a problem that Star Wars has, is that it's sort of, there is almost like somewhat of a structure implied when you play with when you're telling like the bigger events of things. And then you're like, oh well, why isn't it adhering and people can't see it and stuff? And it's like, at the end of the day, like the Mandalorian, if you want to look at it in this way, why is that the character to get into this like big Republic stuff that's going on? Why is that the vehicle for that story? That doesn't really make sense.
Correct.
He's not the, what I mean? It would be
because
like,
he's not an arch plot type character with the quest. He's a mini plot type character that has a series of adventures and meets other characters, and that they go along. It's almost a slice of life bounty hunter thing, and they're trying to force some arch quest that doesn't actually exist. It's just a timeline or a key event exists that they're moving toward. He's not really on a quest. It's like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too in that area. And if you think about it, the way probably to have done it, I know you gotta go, but like the way to have done it would have been to keep Mando as the mini plot. But when Boba Fett showed up, he's on a quest that puts him, you know what I mean? Because he's a guy who's also totally expendable, and he would have a grief against the Empire, all that other kind of shit, or even the New Republic in general. Like there would have been a way to give that more of a central quest, but then he made him a mini plot guy too. I don't know. It's like they're all trying to set up TV shows that they don't want to make us 24 episodes of a TV show series of. It's so weird.
Well, that's where like I both like you're right, and you didn't have to be right. That's what kind of irritates me about season 3 of The Mandalorian, is that in season 3 of The Mandalorian, he does have a quest. They are on a quest together. He's pledged his like fealty to her, and like they're gonna bring back Mandalore. Then he's like, well, I did it, peace out, and then they told me to leave, and I leave, so he's not on it. But like when you get down to it, like Thrawn coming back is all that shit's fun, and I know everybody wants that, blah 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 blah. But like that, and that still could have happened. But the thing about it is, if Mandalore rises again, that becomes a problem for depending on who's in control of it. And like when you had Mandalore that was about to like come back or could come back, and this cultist is at the head of it, like through the armorer, for instance, then you did have a threat to the New Republic right there. And they're not in episode 7, 8, 9 in any kind of meaningful way, and we don't see them. So there was a totally like the possibility that that quest could have led to that event. And then those things would have been tied in, and they would have like naturally been against maybe a New Republic who doesn't want the Mandalorians to exist based off of who they've been in the past. It would be like letting ISIS or Al Qaeda come back. You know what I mean? Like it would be like that kind of concept. But like, no, we're just going to squash it out. We're not going to let it happen. And then that would lead to a big conflict. And so like, they could have done that, but then they, start going, oh, we'll have Thrawn and blah, blah, blah. And like, we got to make our anti-heroes heroes is kind of like what the thing that they've been on.
That's the thing that gets me the most is that was the thing that when people go, oh, the 90s were great for comics and stuff. I'm like, you forget when they tried to make both Venom and the Punisher heroes. They even so much so that they rebooted the Punisher where he was like a ghost hunter. I don't know if people forget that one. That was really fucking great. Like they had, but they made Venom Lethal Protector. That's why Carnage shows up, because you need an even bigger Carnage. And look, man, it's all fun to watch, but the reality was you take a big bad and then you nerf him, because he's got marketing potential. It's like people will root for the bad guy and buy merch, even if the bad guy fails in the end.
Darth Vader.
Breaking Bad's
original Darth Vader.
Yeah, original Darth Vader. There you go, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So. He was a shithead, and we all loved his toys and bought his beach towels and all that kind of shit because he was cool. Yeah, and Breaking Bad. I go to Gus's Chicken. Shit sounds good. No, I mean not Gus, but actual Walter White. Yeah, it's a that's what that like Thrawn book series tries to do. It tries to make Thrawn into an anti-hero, and it's just like, you can't have Thrawn as a hero and anti-hero as well as the antagonist of this thing and really make it work, like really make it sit right. That's why I'm not completely, convinced about what the angle is going to be for Thrawn. Like right now, in terms of the Ahsoka stuff, we have a very clear indication of why we think or why he's doing what he's doing. Like we know what his goal is, but we don't really know the why. And is the why based off of what the Thrawn books were saying? It might be. I mean, Thrawn could really just be like, you know, I'm going to get all these forces together and I'm going to wait for the Grist to attack. Then we're going to counterattack and then the people will follow us. Might be that simple.
I won't lie, Jason. I couldn't finish that Thrawn book that Zahn wrote, the first one.
Yeah.
The
I didn't
recent,
like,
you know,
I started
I bailed.
as well, and I bailed out and I also bailed out on that Fallen Order book. I was like, the name for me, shit sucks. You know what I mean? It's boring.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. And so that's also why when, you know, people go like, oh, well, Timothy Zahn is like, I'm like, yeah. I mean,
I don't want the Kazans touching Star Wars either, but you know, so
yeah. I mean, well, after fucking Willow, old Kasdan can, young Kasdan, just fucking don't let him be in charge of the playlist. That's all I'll say. But Dale says nothing Star Wars has ever turned out as it was planned. Not in either George's trilogies. That's a moot point. Yeah, you're right. No, you totally are.
Dale's an apologist, though, Jason. So,
no, he's not. Jody says, if you're going to make if you're going to make a trilogy, the story has to be planned in advance. If not, it will limit the next director in terms of the character and freedom. Should you never have removed his mask? Big fuck up. Yeah, that's right there is inherently the problem with saying something is a trilogy. Because like the Marvel films, they just fucking make it up as they go in phases. And there's never a trilogy. So that's the good thing about what they're doing on these next films, whether it's the Mando films or the Rey film, or even
give everyone an example, because they're going to say the Marvel sucks, so you shouldn't follow. Let me give people an example. You know what is not written out in advance at all, 100% on record? The Mission Impossible films. Yeah. McQuarrie doesn't write scripts. He writes it as they go. Once he has actors and locations, then they build the story, and then it changes as they go.
But it's also taking them like 20 years to write 5, right? To be fair.
No, they're on 7 and 8 right now. They've been doing 2. No, they've been churning these out every 2 years, man. Like
there's that many of them now. Fuck. Okay.
Yeah, they're on. Yeah. So like we're getting one this year, one next year. So, but like, I'm just saying that there's no one way to do it, folks. If you think like you could write all the things out in advance you want, like I'm sure those Aragon and Percy Jackson fucking movies were all figured out too. So what? Like if it's an unengaging story with a bunch of people that are cut out of cardboard and we've all seen it before, you won't care. I just want people to care.
Yeah.
And so this is why I get back to like when I mentioned a Quentin Tarantino or something like that, Favreau is from that same class of, when I say class, I mean like high school class, the class of 92, 93, 96, 98, where they put characters into situations and were writing for characters like swingers, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, and when he tries to throw in, he did this on Iron Man. Iron Man was about characters, you know, just by way of inefficiencies, right? They didn't have a full script and blah, 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 blah. It turned out to be he was the right guy for that. But when they start to build an Iron Man 2 where it's going to set up S.H.I.E.L.D. and it's going to set up these other characters and these things that are all going to tie in together, you know, and the War Machine stuff, that stuff, it falls apart. So you got to find out what your strength is as a storyteller and lean into that. They were working with someone who's really good at all that shit, then that person would be knocking out the part. We wouldn't be having this conversation about this, you know? But when Favreau isn't writing, like that the Carson Tekka stuff, like when he's talking to Carson, you know, whatever, man, I can't fucking remember. Carson. When Carson's in the fucking office with Tim Meadows, I thought that should have been one of the best scenes. That's right up Favreau's wheelhouse. Yeah. You know, like it's the kind of thing he's really good at. Like when James Caan is in the fucking office, like talking to Buddy and Elf, go watch that all day long. Like, you know? But I don't know. I don't know where the disconnect there is, or if sometimes it's just the studio has an expectation. Like, well, this is Star Wars, so it has to be this way. And I don't subscribe to that. Like
sometimes, yeah. Yeah, that's happened. I think they've broken out of that a little, like Andor, for instance, breaks out of that mold. But so it does happen. But yeah, Dale says, Daisy and Adam both said their characters followed the trajectory they said would happen to their characters as well, and that's like true. I mean, she was going to be like the one who goes on and starts the Jedi Order, and he was going to die to make that happen, and he had to die because of the things he had done. You can't have that character live. He doesn't get to blow up, become a space Nazi and blow up all of those planets and kill his father, and then everything's cool, go on, become a Jedi. That's not the way that they were going to do it. So it's like, yeah, like they have ideas like for those characters and like what they'll do. The problem realistically wasn't that they didn't have a plan. It was that they had plan A, they had plan B, they had plan C, plan D, and E. And then at the end of the day, whoever was going to fucking direct was just going to pick what that was.
It's a lack of decision making.
Yeah, it's like they know what the possibilities are, and then they just couldn't agree on it, or agree with what that would be.
Mm-hmm. You can see this on JJ's Star Trek 2008, right? 2009, whichever year that came out. With the Klingons, they couldn't figure out what to do with the Klingons. So like they shot stuff with them, but they didn't want to show them. He kept them all in shadow. They were ridiculous. So he just cut out this whole section that sort of explained where Nero went to. And in the movie, you're like, so he was just sitting out in space for 30 years? No, he was in a Klingon prison, but he couldn't decide on what to do with. No one could decide. And it's just, it's consistent with that, with him, unfortunately. Same with the whole Khan thing. Will Khan be Mitchell or whatever? Will he be Khan? Right. We don't know in the script. And everyone goes, no, it's always supposed to be Khan. Except I've heard Lindelof at different speaking engagements, right, before COVID, say, well, actually, we knew he didn't decide until the nth hour, and I don't know what that is. I mean,
well,
it's his job to make decisions, So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about that story, but it sounds kind of what we were talking about, where you're taking structure and letting that kind of guide everything, and it's like, well, it doesn't really make sense, does it? Because if it was complete sense, if that was like the best answer to the story, it would just naturally more or less fall in place. But they're like, well, if we structure it like this, then we come up with a great idea for that, then it works itself out. But but yeah, and like Dell says, Dell agrees. He says exactly, they need decision makers. Yeah, that is.
I thought you meant he agreed with being an apologist. But
no,
I agree with you.
Dell's not an apologist. Stop.
Okay.
But no, and that's like, that was always sort of going to be in a potential issue. But it also, on that sequel trilogy, had they not brought JJ back and it was a third director who was fresh, not exhausted, you know what I mean? And it was like coming right in at it and with a lot of exuberance and passion, may have brought the fucking, may have made episode 9 even better. And then we would be like, that's the way to do it. Like, it's just that it didn't, I mean, JJ didn't land it at the end of the day, so we could blame him. But at the same time, like, had Colin Trevorrow like rocked it,
for me,
and he could have, he didn't, but he just didn't, and Colin just didn't land it either.
The best part of The Last Jedi for me is the ending. That's where I'm like, and I feel like that's, if you take a bunch of other things, you get them together, finally at the end, it really was really strong at the ending. I'm like, this is a great ending.
Yeah,
that was the dude to make the fucking third movie. Even if you don't like the second one, I'm telling you, he would have been on a roll.
No,
I'm telling you, it would have been. I think the dude really had his footing on that one. Like,
yeah, well, it would have like, because that's the biggest problem, and I honestly don't think JJ goes back to quote retcon as much as people say, but the choices he made were so poor that they come off as such. So whether he meant to or he didn't, it's kind of like ends up being the same like ending for that kind of stuff. And like him putting the mask back on, it's stuff like that. It's just like fucking dumb. It just doesn't.
Weird Ewok stuff.
It just doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't like. Well, the Ewok stuff. I mean, like
Lando's daughter that isn't Lando's daughter, but maybe is Lando's daughter.
Lando's daughter isn't Lando's daughter. Yeah, all of that shit. Like, it just kind of like it ended up being. It ended up just being like it
Poe's
felt like
girlfriend who's not really a girlfriend, but maybe he's a girlfriend.
yeah, Rose Tico who's involved but not really involved. It's like honestly, I mean, I'm glad she got the role or got the work, I should say. But if you were gonna do that with her, like you should have just fucking said she died. Like it was such like an insult to the character. And it almost would have been better if like if Finn was fighting for fucking Rose in that movie who died. Like it's really like but yeah, had it either been a consistent voice or another fresh voice, but the mistake was bringing back the person from the first one to go and then like pretend like that trilogy was always his course when it wasn't.
Especially a guy who's admitted endings aren't his strong point. You know, like
Dale says Rob doesn't know what an apologist is. Star Wars is for kids. If you find the kid stuff in Star Wars a problem for you, you're too old for Star Wars. Learn to allow and not let it bother you.
Yeah, I know all the kids are lining up to go watch Star Wars right now. Like it's their favorite thing. They're all talking about it on TikTok. They just can't get over thinking about Star Wars.
My actual take is that like culturally successful Star Wars. And for the record, Andor is not culturally successful Star Wars. It's not for everybody. It's not for the entire like American culture or whatever, however you want to look at it, Western culture. Is something it can be enjoyed by children and adults though. And George has said it's for kids, but I don't, George isn't God. I don't care what he says on that one. I'm like, the successful Star Wars is when you make a movie and 4-year-olds watch it, and then grandparents are as elated when they leave A New Hope as the kids were. That's.
I'm sorry, Jason. I have a tramp stamp that begs to differ. It says God on my back.
Oh, really?
20 years ago. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I thought
anytime I lift the flannel up and people shut up.
Right. Well, we can't actually see it because your back hair is as thick as your beard hair. It's like a white pillow.
I've never thought about that until today.
It's just above your ass. It's oh yeah. You haven't seen George Mandover? Oh, damn. But yeah, no. I mean,
I haven't been to Celebration as much as you, Jason, so I haven't had the opportunity.
Yeah. No, but but I also like I more agree with Dell's like thing about like a lot of times there's certain things where you're just like why did the lightsaber short out in water there and then over here they're using lightsabers underwater, and it's just like I'll tell you because that's cool, because it was cool that happened or that it broke or whatever it happens to be, like that's
I'll tell you where it
kind of a role with it.
Though. I don't care about any of that. Where it loses it for me, right, is when you open a movie with Jedi who can run as fast as the Flash.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of the movie, they're running like normal people. And just so you could split them and get them separated. That's where I have an issue with it. Because
if he had Force ran, he would have ran right into the hole, Rob. He couldn't have stopped.
That would have been great.
Yeah, he doesn't have force break.
But they can fight while they're falling and stuff. Yeah.
No, no, it is. And that is the problem with like playing with certain like force power concepts and ideas and shit like that. But like in my head, I've had to make this up in my head. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan could do that together because like they're like so in step and like alike and shit, and like they got this thing down by themselves. Ain't happening. Once it or Sonic,
the nerdiest shit you've ever said.
It's true. I thought this was like 19. I was like 19 when I came up with it in my head. I was 19 when I came up with this idea.
Or how about this? When Obi-Wan says he can't be defeated because he has the high ground, but Darth Maul is 13 stories above him in the first movie, and all Obi-Wan had to do is jump up right in front of him, flip, land, wait, and then hit him.
Here's where you don't understand is Obi-Wan Kenobi trained Anakin, so he knows all of Anakin's chess moves. He knows every move he'll do. That's why he knows he has him checkmated if he moves. With old Maul, it's who knows.
He could have just said, "I know all your moves, Anakin." Whatever you do, I'll do better.
Or
You
he said,
can't
I
do
got the high
shit,
ground.
Anakin.
And then like Rick McCollum's like, yeah, we do, bro.
Yeah,
But
that seems more likely. Seems more likely.
he's like, you know what he should say? He should say, got the high ground. And he's like, oh, George's like, this is good stuff. But
Explains the hair.
no, but the thing is, with the argument of it's for kids, what it really comes down to is how many times has it tested the patience of adults? Because Star Wars also is not Power Rangers, which is for kids, or the Cabbage Patch Kids, which is for kids, or fucking Care Bears, whatever the new thing shit is, Pokemon, whatever the old things, it's not that stuff. It's not that. So the whole it's for kids thing, that's true. But on the flip side of it is how many times has it tested the patience of the adult audience? And like, that's what Phantom Menace did for a lot of adults. It tested their patience so many times that they were now not on board, and then they become completely reactionary, tensed up, and nitpicking ensues. Nitpicking sets in at a point, and there are those people that are like the culture warriors who come out here and like they're already ready to nitpick, but that's because the state of the world has already, they don't like the world that they live in. They want it to be this like whatever kind of thing. So they are already at that state. So they're like a hyper accelerated version of that. But when you get down to like the general audience, like me with Mando season 3, is I'm like, people are starting to nitpick, but you can see like the nitpicking is like a snowball, and it gets bigger and bigger as patience, as we have to start making justifications over and over again. And then I finally
there's a big difference, Jason.
You guys lost the thread,
There's a big difference. The Iron Giant is ultimately for kids. The MCU films are for kids, but then there's pandering. And when you start to pander to the lowest common denominator, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
When you start to pander to the lowest common denominator, you end up with those Alvin and the Chipmunk films.
Right.
And if you think putting lightsabers in their hands is going to fucking make everything better, or it's a good excuse because you can say, well, now the Chipmunks got lightsabers, so it's all cool because that's Star Wars. Good luck with that. See where it gets you.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the big event film you remember it to be. It'll just be that thing that came out and people forgot about.
So, but like Dell says, what did you want to see as a 12-year-old? Would you have written the same story about war and killing with the same distraction from the impact that might have had on younger children? But it's like on that same kind of like note, like a 12-year-old doesn't want Andor. And is Andor Star Wars? Is Andor for kids? So it's like we've moved beyond that.
I could tell you what I wanted. Something that was tonally consistent with The Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope. The original New Hope, where Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen were left out as charred corpses, and Obi-Wan cut off a dude's arm in a bar when he got out of fucking line, right? And Han Solo shot a motherfucker before he had a chance to shoot him because, hey, it's better me than you, And that people that overcome their fallacies to become better people. They don't just go, well, I'm the good guy now, so I'm always going to be good the whole time. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it like I said, I think that the core of the Star Wars fan base wants to go in on the fantasy. And it's just, if they start having to ask questions too many times and they get lost, then it does set in. Like that's one of the things that George, in trying to, or in actually doing something that was not expected, and by like growing the galaxy and shit like that, people who felt that they knew everything about it and were experts were all of a sudden not. And then they became also rejecting all of that stuff. So that's where I kind of go like this new Jedi Order thing, that with Rey and having Rey be the protagonist might be the way to go. And it might be the thing where everybody's like, I already get this. I know where this is going. Why is it difficult? And then if they have a very concise, simple answer that reads really well, then you go, okay. And then people will be on board. And it might be, a pop success. It might not be the most fucking daring Star Wars film that they could have done, but it might be just what they need and what the audience needs in the theater. So, because honestly, like on paper, if you said, oh, we're going to do another Star Wars film after episode 9 and it's Rey, I'd be like, that's not what I fucking want. Like, I just got that. The last time I went to the theater to see a Star Wars new Star Wars movie was a Rey movie. It's not really what I want. But I also think now that we're at this space where it's like 5 years out, people will be like, or 6 years out even, like, okay, I'll take anything, and that might be one that's just like the good way to go. But you got anything else to add before we take off, Rob?
It's all for kids, so you don't have to try. That's what we've taken away from today's show. That's the moral. We don't have to even attempt to try.
No,
right?
that's the exact opposite.
Just make Teletubbies in space.
No. I've considered what you said, and I've decided no.
Yeah.
And that
Those
new
G.I. Joe films were for kids. Just do that. Just do the G.I. Joe films with Star Wars.
And remember the G.I. Joe movie? Remember the G.I. Joe like miniseries that they started making where like Dusty was a traitor? That's like my favorite time of G.I. Joe, when Dusty was a traitor. I was like, man, that's fascinating. It was like 6 probably. I was like, damn, he's a traitor. What? But anyways, we'll be back tomorrow. Dusty, he was like the guy. He had like the desert like thing that came out, on the back here with like camouflage, like desert camo, like a helmet with like, I don't know what you call it, like a piece of cloth that keeps the dust off you from in the sand. He's Dusty. Right. Oh yeah, the Dusty Arc. I loved it as a kid. I don't know if it holds up, but anyways, we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you to everybody for the super chats. I appreciate it. Thank you to our new channel members and to the channel members who are in the chat today and all that kind of stuff. Jonesy being a channel member and all that stuff. We'll be back tomorrow. If there's any new Star Wars news, we'll be covering it. And a friend of ours has a birthday today, so we'll just say happy birthday, but I don't want to embarrass him. So anyways, we'll see everybody later. And Rob, say bye.
Bye.
It's the end of the show. Come
on, let's go. Hey!
It's the end of the show.
Come on, let's go. Hey!
It's the end of the show.
Come on, let's go. Hey!
You know you should go.
Come on, let's go.
It's not about spaceships.